Welcome to WiCyS Around the World event series. My name is Laura Wellstead and I am the President of WiCyS UK affiliate. Facilitating today's event with me from the WiCyS UK team is Natasha Harley and Yana Incheva, who will run the Q&A segment later in the presentation with the feedback we have had from our members and our wider community. Not only are we excited to be part of the WiCyS Around the World event series, we're also very proud to be discussing and raising awareness of a topic that is close to mine and my colleagues' hearts: imposter syndrome. So what is it? Imposter syndrome is in fact a very common phenomenon amongst business leaders. Many struggle with it on a day-to-day basis, but few admit to actually suffering from it. Imposter syndrome can be debilitating and is the experience of feeling as if you're a fraud and that you don't belong in the job or profession that you are doing. It can affect anyone, no matter their social status, their work background, their skill level or degree of expertise, but it does tend to affect women more than men. Last year, KPMG surveyed 750 executive women from major companies, including many from top brands, to better understand the specific issues women face in the workplace. The study found that 75% of executive women identified with having experienced imposter syndrome. I think it's important to point out that the 750 women surveyed were not C-suite. They were 1 or 2 steps away. So 75%, that's 3/4 of those women who are 1 or 2 steps away from C-suite and were willing to admit they have experienced imposter syndrome. This is an alarming statistic and is clearly a key barrier for a lot of women in reaching their full potential. So how do we flip the script on imposter syndrome? To help us deliver today's event and raise awareness of this very important subject is WiCyS UK's a very good friend, Lisa Ventura. Lisa is an award-winning cybersecurity consultant and is the CEO and founder of the UK Cybersecurity Association, a member association that is dedicated to individuals and companies who actively work in cybersecurity in the UK. She is a thought leader, author and keynote speaker and has been published in various publications globally. Her 3 books titled The Rise of the Cyberwoman, Volumes 1 and 2, and The Varied Origins of the Cybermen, Volume 1, have all received great acclaim. Lisa is part of the advisory group for the newly created West Midlands Cyber Resilience Centre. She sits on the board of Think Digital Partners and is part of Cybersecurity Valley UK. She is also a strong advocate for initiatives raising awareness for women in cybersecurity and STEM, the cyber skills gap and neurodiversity. In 2020, she was named CISO Magazine's InfoSec Superwoman of the Year and has won numerous other awards for her work, including SC Magazine's Outstanding Contribution to Cybersecurity Award. In 2021, she was named as one of SC Magazine's top 30 women of influence in cybersecurity and is proud to be part of the Million STEM campaign. Lisa's journey into the cybersecurity industry was a non-linear one, and she spent many years in the entertainment industry working with Chris Tarrant, the first host of Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, prior to making the move into cybersecurity in 2009. Lisa is a true inspiration, but it didn't come without its struggles, which you'll hear more about in a very honest and engaging presentation. Today, Lisa will provide you with an overview of imposter syndrome, provide insights and statistics on how common it actually is, and then most importantly, share some hints and tips to help you flip the script on it. Without further ado, it's my absolute pleasure to now hand over to Lisa.
Great. Hi, everyone, and thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. My name's Lisa Ventura, and welcome to Flipping the Script on Imposter Syndrome. I've struggled with imposter syndrome my entire life, and no matter what I've done, no matter what achievements I've had in my work and career, I've always had voices in my head that say all sorts of things to me, like I'm a fraud and I'm going to be found out at any second, or that award was meant for somebody else, not me, or other people are way better than me, or I don't deserve this. And that's just a small snapshot of the things that go around my head whenever I have anything published or I do anything in my career. Those are the kind of thoughts that I have. Imposter syndrome is something that definitely affects most of us in some way or another. It is extremely debilitating, and it often gets in the way of us following our dreams and goals, and gets in the way of us being our best selves and living our best lives. So today I'm going to talk about how to flip the script on imposter syndrome and how to manage it. So what is imposter syndrome? Well, it was first discovered in 1978 by two psychologists, Pauline Rose Clance and Susanna Imes, and it refers to an internal experience of believing that you're not as competent as others perceive you to be. And while this definition is usually narrowly applied to intelligence as achievement, it also has strong links to perfectionism and the social context. It's characterized by feelings of inadequacy and debilitating thoughts, often around your career, in terms of your achievements and reaching your goals. And studies have shown that many high achievers suffer from imposter syndrome, and famous imposter syndrome sufferers include Albert Einstein, Maya Angelou, Sheryl Sandberg, David Bowie, and many others. Studies today show that at least 70% of people have suffered imposter syndrome in some form. And as I previously mentioned, although imposter syndrome can affect anyone regardless of job or social status, those who are high achievers or perfectionists often experience it more. And throughout my entire life, I've always been a perfectionist, and I've always strived to achieve more, do more, and be more, which means I'm often classed as a high achiever. And then in 2018, I was diagnosed as actually autistic. And following my diagnosis, I started to recognize that the thoughts I was having about not being good enough were holding me back. And I resolved to try and do something about managing them. I'm a huge fan of the rock band Queen and Freddie Mercury. And the turning point for me was when I saw the film Bohemian Rhapsody for the first time in October 2018, which is not long after my diagnosis. And there's a line in the film delivered by Queen's then manager, Jim Miami Beach. And the line was, "Fortune favors the bold." And from that moment onwards, when I heard that line, I resolved to try and manage those voices in my head that were constantly telling me that I was not good enough and that I didn't deserve any of my achievements. And I would try to flip the script on them. So here are a few of the thoughts that might be going around your head as examples. Sometimes I feel that I'm beating myself up because I feel like I can't do enough. There's just so much that needs to be done. I feel like a fraud every single day. It's a constant struggle, but I have to remind myself that sometimes you have to be the best person to do something, even if you don't think you're supposed to be that person. I've doubted myself in every career move I've ever made. In leadership, you're expected to have all the answers, but most of the time, I'm just guessing and hoping for the best. With every new challenge, I doubt my ability to act and make the right call because I know I don't really have all the right information, yet I don't have time to waste getting that information before making a judgment call. So if you recognize yourself in any of these statements, then you're suffering from imposter syndrome. So as you can see, everyone feels like an imposter sometimes, and that's absolutely okay. If you've ever felt like this, you're not alone and you're in very good company. And what's important is how you deal with it and how you manage it so that it doesn't stop you from living your best life and achieving your goals and being the very best you can be. So it might surprise you to know, as I mentioned earlier, that even celebrities can suffer from imposter syndrome. The civil rights activist, author, poet, and Nobel laureate Maya Angelou admitted at times that she often felt like a fraud, once saying, "I've written 11 books, but each time I think, uh-oh, they're going to find me out now. I've run a game on everybody and they're going to find me out." Even the beloved David Bowie shared his struggles with his self-esteem and imposter syndrome. However, he covered his feelings of inadequacy with constant work. And during an interview just before his death, he shared, "I have enormous self-image problems and very low self-esteem, which I hid behind obsessive writing and performing. I was driven to get through life very quickly. I really felt so utterly inadequate. I thought the work was the only thing of value." And finally, my all-time favorite singer, rock star, and love of my life, Freddie Mercury, was plagued by imposter syndrome. He would often be physically sick before every live concert or performance that he gave. And every time he came off stage, he would turn to the rest of the band and say, "Was I all right, darlings? Do you think that they liked me?" This was the guy that had over 1 billion people all over the world in the palm of his hand during Queen's iconic Live Aid performance on the 13th of July, 1985. And of course, Freddie Mercury was loved by many, many people all over the world, including me, yet he still thought that no one liked him or his singing. Absolutely incredible. Which brings me to another thing that I've learned while researching imposter syndrome. So thanks in part to social media, our expectation of what reality should be is higher. Then when reality doesn't match up to what we think it should be in our minds, our disappointment levels are higher. We all filter our lives in social media in particular, especially on Instagram, where the pressure is on to post the most perfect photos of our most perfect lives. This in turn can lead to poor mental health. And in a way, it's no wonder that we struggle so much with mental health today, as much as we are, putting aside, of course, the global COVID-19 pandemic. When I was diagnosed as actually autistic in 2018, I decided to take off the mask that I've been living behind my entire life. I decided to be truthful about my weird and strange interests that I have in my spare time. For example, since the age of 15, when I was made to watch the BBC docudrama Threads about nuclear war in the UK at school, which is something that would never happen today, I'm now fascinated with everything to do with nuclear war. I'm obsessed, if you hadn't guessed already, with the rock band Queen and Freddie Mercury. I love watching American soap operas from the 80s, such as Dallas, Dynasty, Knots Landing, The Colbys and Falcon Crest. I love heavy metal music, but I kept all of this hidden for fear of what people would think of me. Today, I share my interests and I share my struggles. In my Twitter bio, I've actually got hashtag nuclear war enthusiast. I shared openly that in 2013, I lost my only son to stillbirth and what it's like to live every day since then as an MTR mother. I share that my dad was diagnosed with a rare form of encephalitis last year after I'd been fighting the NHS for a definitive diagnosis for him for over 3 years and what it's like to care for him. I share about all the challenges, hurts and betrayals I've had throughout my life, sometimes from family, but also from what were close friends as well affected me, and how I use those experiences to stand taller and achieve more. I've started to share the real me on social media, and I stopped filtering my interests, my work and my achievements. I shared my struggles and challenges. And you know what? This had a really positive impact on my imposter syndrome. And I want to stress that it did not go away. I don't think that my imposter syndrome will ever go away. I'm feeling it a little bit right now delivering this talk, for example, but it did lessen and I did start to recognize when those debilitating thoughts were impacting my work. I stopped saying no to opportunities that came my way. I was always getting asked to speak at conferences or events or write articles because of my expertise in cybersecurity, and in particular in cybersecurity awareness training. But sometimes I would get so far with an opportunity and then my imposter syndrome would kick in. I would hear in my head, they don't mean you, they mean someone else. Or you can't do this, you're a fake and a fraud and they will find you out at any moment. So I would pull out of the opportunity and say I couldn't do it. And then as quickly as I had said no, I would regret saying no. And it was a vicious circle. And I resolved to break that cycle and say yes more than I said no. It was really scary, but it was also very empowering. So how do we flip the script on imposter syndrome? Wouldn't we all like to feel more confident and assured in our abilities? I know I would, but I also know that feeling like that isn't a realistic goal. So I'm going to share a few tips that will hopefully help you all to flip the script on imposter syndrome and kick it to the curb where it belongs. So my first tip to flip the script on imposter syndrome is follow your own path and don't compare yourself to others. You know, there are always going to be people with more skills than you. There's always going to be somebody more attractive than you, higher up the career ladder than you, thinner than you, or quite frankly, well, better than you. And you know what? For me, I honestly don't care, and neither should you. You are unique and you should follow your own path and not look at what others are doing. Their paths are their paths. They've had different life challenges, different life experiences, different careers, and different struggles. And I'd like to share a personal experience of how imposter syndrome affected me and how I flipped the script on it. So, a few years ago, after thinking about it for a long time, I had an idea to launch a trade association in cybersecurity, but imposter syndrome stopped me. I'd been in the cybersecurity industry since 2009, but in my head, I was thinking, I can't do this. I have no place or any right to do this, and people will think I'm a fraud, or I don't have the right skills to launch a trade association, or I'm not talented enough. The list just goes on. I was always looking around at what other people were doing in the industry. And each time I got close to launching it, I panicked, thinking I wasn't good enough, that they were all better qualified than me to launch it. In the end, it was through coaching sessions with my coach, Christina Magro, that I flipped the script on those thoughts and decided to go ahead with it despite some significant personal challenges, especially around looking after my dad with his rare autoimmune illness. Christina, my coach, said to me that in her eyes, there was no one actually better qualified than me to launch it. I was connected, I was well known in the cybersecurity industry, and I'd launched similar initiatives and festivals in the past which were successful. And I realised that she was right. And so the UK Cybersecurity Association was born. My next tip to flip the script on imposter syndrome is to be proud of who you are and acknowledge your achievements. So after I launched the UK Cybersecurity Association, I suddenly found myself in high demand. But unlike before, I was determined to make the most of every opportunity that came my way. I said yes to numerous speaking engagements. I said yes to writing articles and blogs for key publications such as Security magazine, Computer Weekly magazine, Sophos's Naked Security blog, and many more. I said yes to being interviewed, being on podcasts and video chats as a guest, and appearing at events as a panelist. And then the awards started coming. So I won SC Magazine's Outstanding Contribution to Cybersecurity Award, Cybersecurity UK's Cybersecurity Personality of the Year Award, Women in Cybersecurity's USA Supporter of Women Award. I won a Tech 100 Women Award, and I won Security Excellence's Woman of the Year Award. I was also included in SC Magazine's Top 50 Women in Cybersecurity list in 2019, named as InfoSec Superwoman of the Year for CISO magazine in 2020, and recently included in SC Magazine's Top 30 Women of Influence in Cybersecurity during the pandemic. But one of my biggest achievements has been becoming a finalist for ITV's National Diversity Awards in the Positive Role Model Gender category. Boy, did my imposter syndrome go through the roof then when I received that email, I can tell you. I still don't know the outcome of this, though, as the awards have been postponed several times due to COVID-19, but hopefully they'll take place in September this year. And every time I was a finalist for, or I'd won an award, my imposter syndrome went into absolute overdrive. And I'd always be thinking, I'm a fraud, they've got it wrong, this wasn't meant for me, it was meant for somebody else. When I won SC Magazine's Outstanding Contribution to Cybersecurity Award, I didn't even go to the ceremony. Although I was a finalist, I thought I had absolutely no chance of winning it and didn't even go, and found out that I'd won the award from their Twitter account. So how did I start acknowledging and being proud of my achievements? Well, I flipped the script to use them for good. And by that, I mean, I use my awards and my experiences and my achievements to inspire others to enter the cybersecurity industry, especially women and those who are neurodiverse like me. And the cybersecurity industry has a huge skills gap and gender imbalance. So if I can encourage just one other person to consider a career in cyber because they've looked at me, my awards and my achievements, then I'll be happy. My next tip to flip the script on imposter syndrome is don't strive to be perfect, strive to be excellent. And as I mentioned earlier, I'm a huge perfectionist. And one of my spare time hobbies is bullet journaling. And when I'm creating spreads in my bullet journals, I've been known to rip out pages if I make even the smallest mistake and start all over again, even if I've taken hours creating that spread. I have to have everything around me in perfect order. My day has to run to a perfect schedule. And I'll go through draft after draft after draft of a blog or article until I think it is absolutely perfect. I know this is in part of my being autistic, the fact that I have to have a schedule and everything has to run like clockwork. And it makes me very uncomfortable if there are changes to my day or planned schedules and routine. So flipping the script on being a perfectionist is probably the hardest thing that I've had to do. And perfectionism is often a way to make sure that you don't fail. But I find that having a prevention mindset is hardly the best one for creativity and innovative thinking. So to try to combat this, I focus on the worst case scenario, but how unlikely it is to occur, and realize that there's probably something I can do even in that worst case scenario anyway. So I now have bullet journals of pages that have mistakes on and are not turned out. I send off blogs and articles after a couple of drafts instead of several, and 9 times out of 10 they're accepted. I don't have to have everything in its place anymore. And this is hard, and I struggle with it every day, but I no longer strive to be perfect. I strive to be excellent. And to me, there's a huge difference. Another one of my coping mechanisms for managing my imposter syndrome is a success journal I started. It doesn't have to be a journal. It could be a success digital file, whatever works best for you. Whatever format you choose, this is the place to log all your successes, your achievements, and your goals that you've attained, no matter how small they are. So my success journal is in the form of a bullet journal, and I create weekly spreads that detail all my achievements. I also stick photos in my success bullet journal and include things in it that inspire me, such as quotes. Then when my imposter syndrome starts creeping in, I look through my success bullet journal and I focus on how far I've come and what I've achieved. And having this really works for me. And recently, I've also started documenting my achievements in the form of LinkedIn posts and LinkedIn articles. And every week, I try to do a post that summarizes all the achievements that I've had over that week. And when I look back at them, I think, gosh, I can't believe, I achieved all that. I did it. And so when imposter syndrome strikes, look back through your file or journal and give yourself a massive pat on the back for how far you've come, because you more than deserve it. So to summarize, my tips for helping you flip the script on imposter syndrome are: get rid of your social media filter and put out an authentic image of yourself to the world, because people will see through anything else. Follow your own path. Don't run or walk down somebody else's. Comparing yourself to others can be really detrimental. Be proud of and acknowledge all your achievements. You achieved all those things because of your hard work, skills, and talent, so make sure you celebrate them. Don't strive to be perfect. Do your best and strive to be excellent instead. And if you fail, so what? Try again. Start a success file or journal. Find a format that works for you to record your achievements in, so that when imposter syndrome strikes, look through your file or journal and give yourself a huge pat on the back for how far you've come. So as I end this talk, I'd like to mention that myself and 2 colleagues, Nat Schooler and Kim Adele, will be launching International Imposter Syndrome Awareness Day on the 13th of April. And we're going to do this to raise awareness of the phenomenon of imposter syndrome and to provide some resources to help those who are struggling with it. So on the day, we'll have a series of online events and webinars. We'll have a social media campaign. We'll share some personal experiences from those that have been affected by imposter syndrome. We'll share some inspiring podcasts from the Influential Visions Imposter Syndrome series, which are hosted by Nat Schooler. And we'll have a session on Clubhouse on the imposter syndrome phenomenon. Later this year, myself, Nat, and Kim are also going to be launching a book called The Great Imposter: Managing Imposter Syndrome. And we hope this will be towards the end of June this year, or before if it's ready. And this book will be a collection of accounts and expert insights into imposter syndrome, and will cover how business leaders manage it on a day-to-day basis. And if this is something you'd like to find out more about or get involved in, please do drop me an email via info@cybersecurity.association.co.uk. As well as the Awareness Day book that I'll be launching with Nat and Kim, you can also find out more about imposter syndrome on the Influential Visions podcast series, and that's run by Nat Schuler, and I took part in a podcast talking about my imposter syndrome as well. I hope that my talk on flipping the script on imposter syndrome has been helpful and useful for you. And if you have any questions, I'm always free to answer them. So do email me via info@cybersecurityassociation.co.uk or reach out to me on Twitter at CyberGeekGirl, and I'll try to help you. And I know that we've got a few questions that have come up during this talk, which I'm happy to answer as well.
Thank you so much, Lisa. This is an absolutely fascinating subject that I think will resonate with a lot of us. I know it does with me as well. And actually, I really like what you were talking about, your success journal and bullet journal there, Lisa, as well. I think that's a really great tip for us to help us actually remind ourselves of what we've achieved. I think it's very easy when we run our busy lives to actually what we've actually done and appreciate it, get lost in the noise with the daily life. So I really like that. But yes, we do have some questions from our members and viewers, if you don't mind, and my colleagues Jana and Natasha will share these with you.
Thank you, Lisa. That was an incredible presentation. Really enjoyed listening to that, and I'm sure our audience will too. So one of the points that you made early on in your presentation is that in terms of imposter syndrome, it's often found around kind of your career and particularly with high achievers. But are there sort of different types of imposter syndrome? Does it just affect people's careers, or would you sort of suggest that it can affect people in other areas of their lives as well?
I can certainly talk from my own experience in that it affects me in all areas of my life. So parking the obvious work and career side, which I've obviously focused on a lot in my talk, I always struggle with, am I a good wife? Am I a good daughter? Am I a good family member? Am I meant to be in this family? Am I meant to, do this? And I struggle with that all the time as well. Particularly, I think, with regard to relationships, because I got burnt when I was married to my ex-husband, and so I have a lot of that now. I've remarried, that I have to sort of deal with every day of thinking, oh, I hope I'm a good enough wife. I hope I've, done the housework correctly. I hope I've done, and again, it's all part of that perfectionism thing. So I have to manage that side of it as well. I hope I'm a good friend. I can't see my friends because of the pandemic, and I hope they don't forget me, or that I'm not there for them, because of course I am. So it's managing that on a day-to-day basis is really difficult sometimes, but I try to overcome it by, for every negative thought I have, I always try to think some positive thoughts as well, of I've heard from a certain friend today, or I've spoken to a relative, or and they're fine. So it's trying to just turn those negative thoughts into something positive.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think we can all resonate with that, Lisa. Am I a good mother? Like you say there as well, am I being a good friend? Have I reached out enough over the past couple of weeks, etc.? I think we've all been there. And like you say, we all experience imposter syndrome in so many different ways that aren't just related to our careers and work. Again, you mentioned about some of the signs of imposter syndrome, beating ourselves up, that self-doubt, again, professionally and personally. Are there any other typical signs or feelings to recognize when someone is experiencing imposter syndrome? So how can we recognize the signs of other people that may be experiencing it, so that we can perhaps support them?
For me, I always look for mannerisms and sort of tone of voice and body language and things like that, to try and determine if somebody's feeling a little bit that they shouldn't be where they are, that they shouldn't be talking about what they're doing and so on. And it is really, really hard, and working on it myself is a daily process. Every single day I have to combat it. I'm combating it right now talking to you, which I mentioned during my talk as well, believe it or not. But it's difficult, but it can be done. And I think it's just being mindful and reaching out to people and just asking if they're okay, and trying to just start that conversation with them can have just so much meaning and be so valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's for a lot of people, it's quite natural to spot those signs if you're experiencing them yourself, isn't it? And like you say, it's just reaching out. Are you okay? What can we do? What can others do to support you? And try and all get through this together. I guess my sort of final question, one of the questions that came through is sort of practical steps in how to manage it. So, rightly so, you talked around comparing ourselves to others, which I think we're all very guilty of. Not striving for excellence, and to Laura's point, loved the idea of the success journal as well, just to reaffirm, that those successes that you've had, you are great, you do have that ability, and you are an incredible person. So, and it's just to reaffirm, sort of when those negative thoughts come through, just to sort of bring out that positive again. Are there any other practical steps that we can take to try and overcome this? Maybe whether it's through professional advice or any others that perhaps we haven't covered.
For me, and I know that this won't be for everyone, but I did a lot of work with a coach last year, which I also mentioned in my talk, and that for me just changed my whole perception and life as well. So I had those two things. I had the thing of hearing that line, "Fortune favours the bold" in Bohemian Rhapsody, which really made me think, gosh, it does. If I don't do this, I'm going to regret it, for the rest of my life. Start that association, do that talk, do those things that I want to do. And then I took that a step further through my coaching sessions with Christina, and she really, helped me to understand that I was actually perfectly placed to run the association and launch it, and to do those things that I was doing, where I was looking at other people perhaps on Twitter or online and thinking, oh my goodness, I couldn't possibly do any of that. Look at how many followers they've got, or look at how many talks they've done, or how many articles they've written, and I couldn't possibly be like that. But actually flipping it on its head and flipping the script on it, why can't I be like that? And I was always so nervous of reaching out to a lot of people that I looked up to on Twitter. Lisa Forte, for example, has actually become quite a good friend now, but I was so nervous about engaging with her and reaching out to her because she had this amazing following, did all these amazing talks and things like that. And one day I just interacted with her on Twitter, and it just went from there. So what's the worst that can happen? That that it's a no or it's a rejection and so on. You just have to pick yourself up and start all over again. And I've done that quite a few times in my life now, where I've had things go wrong or things happen to me and so on, where I've just had to pick up and start all over again. And that's vital to me.
Yeah, fantastic advice, Lisa. Thank you so much. Okay, we're going to hand over to Jana, who's got a number of questions from our participants as well.
Yes, we've got quite a few of those coming through from our audience. Just before I delve into them, Lisa, thank you very much for this presentation. I'm only going to second Laura's opinion. It was literally like a mirror, if I could say that. I definitely saw myself in it. So thank you for that. And off to the questions. So we've got quite a few of those. One of them being, I want to raise my professional profile and take part in webinars and speak at events. However, I'm absolutely petrified of being asked a question that I can't answer, and I make myself look stupid. Do you have any advice for that? I guess people feelings are resonating with the presentation. So do you have any sort of particular advice?
Absolutely, this is something that affects me even today all the time. So I always look to take part in webinars and speak at events that play to my strengths and my industry and the things that I know about and so on. And I do a lot of mindfulness as well. So I always try to just sort of stop a second, take a breath and think before I answer the question. And that's really difficult to do, especially when you're in the middle of the talk and so on. And I practice as well. So I always, even if it's a panel discussion, I'll have done at least a day, if not two, amount of research on who the panelists are, exactly what the subject and topic is, and getting all that information in front of me so that when I'm faced with that question, I can be as best I can be with regard to the answer and getting that out in an easy to understand way to the audience.
Yeah, that might make sense. And I guess sometimes if you don't know the answer, it's okay to not know it and follow up, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. I've done that a few times as well, and just and actually said, this isn't something I'm confident answering, or something that I'm I hate to use the word expert, because I don't feel that there's any experts in cybersecurity, especially as it changes every single day. But I always feel I'm not expert to answer something, and I will say that, and I will admit that if that's the case, there's absolutely nothing wrong with it at all. I'd rather do that than respond to a question that I don't know enough about and risk giving that wrong answer or that wrong analogy or something that might be detrimental to the person that answered it.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I think the other side of this is that you're actually in the field. So if you don't know the answer, then most certainly know the people that do.
Yeah.
So, great advantage. I mean, there's quite a few of those questions. The other one that we've got is, I love going to events and seminars and learning from the speakers, but I don't network with attendees and make any new contacts. How do I approach people at events? I always worry they'll think I'm not very interesting.
Gosh, this is me to an absolute T. I would go to conferences like InfoSec and the Cyber and Cloud Expo and lots of other different events, and there would always be people that I would want to go and speak to, and I'd always have that nervousness around that they won't find me interesting or they don't want to talk to me. I've always tried to sort of find a group and hear what they're talking about, and then try to sort of interject in that way. And once you've done that and you've got that opening, then the conversation kind of flows naturally, and you can introduce yourself and so on. And that's how I've managed that process. I've had that all the time, especially at InfoSec. For example, when I was at InfoSec in 2019, I went to a talk given by Professor Sue Black, and I've always admired her. Oh my goodness, all the work she's done with Bletchley Park and everything she's done with Tech Up Women, etc. She really is one of my role models. And she was the talk was amazing, and then she came out at the end and started to speak to everyone, and I was so nervous, but I went up to her and said how much I enjoyed her talk, and spoke to her for a couple of minutes, and it was a moment I'd never forget. But oh my goodness, the nerves were just, I can't tell you, compounding, and my heart was pounding and racing. But again, I just tried those mindfulness techniques and just tried to take a deep breath, and she was absolutely lovely. And the regret I've got, I didn't ask her for a selfie with her, and I wish I had, but I'm hoping post-pandemic I can go to another one of her talks and get that selfie.
Yeah, that'd be amazing, wouldn't it? Almost like a next level. You did touch on your presentation about social media, and I guess we've got a question that's coming in relationship to LinkedIn. So I want to grow my network on LinkedIn, but I'm scared to reach out to new people because I don't know what to say, and I'm scared to get rejected. Do you have any tips on how to sort of overcome that feeling, or any help that you could offer out of this scenario?
I've had this one too as well, and as I said in my talk, just trying to reach out to those people that I really wanted to talk to, that I really admire, like Lisa Forte, for example. So I would always try to find something that I think we would have in common to be a opener in a message that I would send. So I'd look at their background, I'd look at where they're working, I'd look at the kind of things that they were doing and putting out on social media, and I would try to find that hook, or that thing that hopefully we would have in common when putting that message together. And that's something I still do now to this day. So I guess do a little bit of research on the person that you want to to reach out to, and see perhaps how you could add value, or look at ways that you could perhaps do something together. So for example, Lisa Forte and Professor Lisa Short and I are discussing doing a series of podcasts together and things like that. But it's finding that hook, or that way in. And again, what's the worst that could happen? That they don't reply, or they ghost you, or they don't, we'll move on to the next. That's what I do now.
Yeah, that's a really useful advice. I guess just try to make the message relevant, so that the people sort of tempted to reply. The next question that we've got, that's an interesting one. So I'm a mom and interested in pursuing a new career in cyber. I've been researching the industry for over 2 years now, but I'm too scared to sign up to a course because I think that I'm not clever enough to do the job, or scared that I'm not clever enough to do the job. Again, how do we overcome that feeling of sort of being scared to almost get out of your comfort zone?
Yeah.
Step into the
absolutely know this one as well. And I read a book by Susan Jeffers called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway, which is all about doing those things that take you out of your comfort zone. And certainly founding the UK Cybersecurity Association took me out of my comfort zone in terms of my skills and abilities. And as I went through in the talk, gosh, I went a long time saying, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, I'm going to be found out any second. And it's not easy, but you need to just find that way of just, yes, that fear is going to be there. You will feel scared to sign up to that course because you're worried that you might fail it, or you might not be good at it, for example. But again, what I say to myself is, what's the worst that could happen? So I do fail the course, or I don't, or I fail the exam, or so on. I'll take it again, I'll do it again. And that's what I always look at doing is, so what if I fail? Doesn't matter, I'll pick myself up, I'll do it again. And I've done that, as I say, quite a few times in my life. So I think just be mindful of those feelings, but as the book by Susan Jeffers says, feel the fear and do it anyway. It is hard. I'm not going to sit here and say it's easy for 1 minute. It isn't. But what's the worst that could happen? Again, you fail the course of the exam. So what? Start all over again. Take that exam again, and keep striving for it. You will succeed.
Yeah, I think right in sort of saying that. I personally would rather do it and know, as opposed to always wonder what would have happened. So that ultimately puts you in a better position. The other question that we have is a little bit on the flip side. It's coming from, as a business leader, how can we support, develop employees with imposter syndrome?
I think just again being mindful that it exists, and having those regular check-ins and those one-to-ones with your team and your employees, seeing how they are, seeing how they're finding their roles and what things you can do to help support them, if there's anything else that you can put in place, and just being mindful that it is a phenomenon that does exist. And being there for them if they want to talk about experiences, and encouraging that conversation and that dialogue. I don't think imposter syndrome is talked about enough. That's why I'm launching the Awareness Day in April with my colleagues Nat and Kim. And we really want to, bring the phenomenon out to the forefront a lot more to say, look, this does exist, and you can support your team around it to be the best that they can be, and providing those, that education and resources. That's where the book comes in, the podcast series that Nat and Kim have been working on, that I've taken part in, and we want to bring all that together to really make a big thing with the Awareness Day. So that's what we're doing.
Yeah, that makes great sense as well. We've got a few questions coming in, but I'm also cautious of the time. So let's go with one last one, and hand over to Laura to sort of wrap up the event. The last question that we'll go for is, does imposter syndrome ever seem to go away, or do you just learn how to deal with it?
In my own personal experience, no, imposter syndrome doesn't ever go away. It's there, but I just try to learn how to manage it and to deal with it. I think a big part of it for me is because I am actually autistic, so that I know I don't fit in the neurotypical way. So it's even harder for me to manage imposter syndrome in that respect. But I just try to manage it on a day-to-day basis, as best I can, using a lot of the tips that I've given during the talk. As I've said a couple of times, it's been quite prevalent during this talk today. So I have to strive to be able to sort of deal with it, and use all those mindfulness techniques that I have to try to be the best that I can be.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Lisa, for the time you spent answering those questions. I think it equipped us all with tips and tricks on sort of how to manage it. Laura, over to you.
Thanks, Jana. I found myself throughout the whole talk, and especially with the questions as well at the end there, everything that's being asked and spoken of, I find myself smiling and nodding, because it's frightening how much it resonates, and actually being honest about it and wearing your heart on your sleeve and talking about this stuff is hugely bravely. So I have massive respect for you for that. Thank you so much for what you've shared with us. I can't thank you enough. I just was thinking then, Jana, the question when you were asking about as business leader, I think it was how can a business leader support employees that are harboring these feelings of imposter syndrome. But I think a really good place for them to start is to actually foster a supportive and inclusive work culture, really, isn't it? Because that has got to be a great starting point to help women be able to channel that self-doubt into some positive motivation. So really keen to hear and connect with you guys, you and your colleagues, when you launch International Imposter Syndrome Day, some of the content you're going to be generating for that hopefully we could potentially help promote as well through Women's Cybersecurity, please. That'd be fantastic. God, so many great things to recap on. Within the talk yourself, you did give towards the end some bullet points of top tips to help combat. I wonder if you'd mind if we actually publish that on our LinkedIn page and on our website when we go live very, very soon. I just think there's some really great tips there. Like I mentioned earlier, I think the bullet points or the bullet journal, success journal, I just think it's absolutely fantastic to just be able to look back really quickly and go, look what I've done this week, or look what I've done this month, or look what I did last year. It would just be an absolute fantastic tool for us all to use on a regular basis. And I just think what you were saying about, we don't have to be perfect. I'm a massive culprit for perfectionism, and I can't move forward with something or deliver something or complete something or even take part in something till I feel I know enough, or I'm perfect enough, or I've done, or it looks a certain way, and it holds me back. It's frustrating. It is frustrating. But yeah, don't strive to be perfect. Strive for excellence. I just think it's a completely different mindset spin on it.
Yeah.
And I think, it's something that we should all be saying to ourselves. And I just love I love the strap line, or the phrase from the Queen movie, "Fortune favours the bold," and I just think that's absolutely fantastic. It's true, absolutely true. Without boldness, we hold ourselves back, and we'll never know what could have been. So, yeah, I massively support that. I think that's fantastic. Thank you, Lisa, very, very much for everything today, and your honesty, and this fantastic learning and tips that you shared with us today.
No problem. You're very
welcome. With International Imposter Syndrome Day, we can't wait.
Thank you.
We can't wait to see the success with that, and what comes.
Great. Thank you very much.
Well, I hope you agree that this was an incredibly powerful presentation, and I thought I would share Lisa's top tips to flip the script with you again. The Q&A covered scenarios and situations that may sound simple and a part of lots of our everyday lives, but so many of us are struggling with them and too embarrassed to ask for help. Networking and contributing, both virtually and in person, are a common aspect of personal and professional development these days. Those feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt will only manifest and impact our personal lives and our careers, holding us back, never reaching our full potential, and always wondering what could have been. People stuck in unfulfilling jobs, or mums returning to work. Why can't they reinvent themselves and pivot into a new and more fulfilling career? For fear of failure and what people would say? Why can't we be our true authentic selves? People don't have to like us or the choices we make, and we don't have to care about what they think, but we do. Business leaders need to wake up and provide workplaces that encourage women to channel any self-doubt into positive motivation. Nurturing professional environments that foster supportive and inclusive work cultures should be an absolute priority on every business strategic people and growth agenda. Lisa certainly is proof that flipping the script is achievable, but as she described, that hasn't come without a lot of hard work on herself. In order to follow our own path, first we must understand it. But how many of us can honestly answer the question, what are my special talents and abilities, and how do I stand apart from others in my field? It is really encouraging to hear that Lisa is part of a team that's driving awareness and launching International Imposter Syndrome Day on Tuesday the 13th of April to raise awareness of the phenomenon of imposter syndrome and to provide resources to help those who are struggling with it. On the day, they will launch with a social media campaign using the hashtag IISAD 2021, so look out for that. They'll be sharing personal experiences from those who have been affected by imposter syndrome. They'll be sharing inspiring podcasts from the influential Visions Imposter Syndrome series, which is hosted by Nat Schooler. They will also host a discussion in the Clubhouse app, which is really exciting. As well, they'll be launching a book called The Great Imposter, Managing Imposter Syndrome. This will be at the end of June, and it will be a collection of accounts and expert insights into imposter syndrome. And it will also cover how business leaders manage it on a day-to-day basis. So really looking forward to seeing that as well. Lisa did say during her presentation that if anyone is interested to reach out, please do. Here's Lisa's contact details. So if you'd like to find out more or get involved in International Imposter Syndrome Day, please email Lisa, info@cybersecurityassociation.co.uk. You can also find more details about it on cybersecurityassociation.co.uk. And you can also find Lisa on Twitter @cybergeekgirl. So the WiCyS mission is to help build a strong, gender diverse workforce by facilitating recruitment, retention and advancement of women in the field. If you are interested to become a member and learn more about member benefits, please visit www.wicys.org. That's WICYS.org. Some of our initiatives include training programs, virtual and in-person events, scholarships, grants and awards, virtual and in-person careers fairs, job boards, annual conference, speaking and media opportunities for our members, and plenty of networking opportunities and interest forums as well. To get in touch with us in the UK at WiCyS UK affiliate, please email us at wicysuk@wicys.org, You can tweet us at WiCyS_UK, and you can also find, follow and message us directly via our LinkedIn company page, which can be found at linkedin.com/company/WiCyS UK. Thank you very, very much for watching. Goodbye.